Good afternoon, everyone. I am going to present case series on ophthalmological implications on carotid cavernous fistula. Written informed consent was obtained from patients for the publication, and there is no conflict of interest or financial support. Carotid cavernous fistula is an abnormal connection between the cavernous sinus and the carotid arterial system. Direct carotid cavernous fistulas are often caused by single traumatic rent in cavernous segment of internal carotid artery. They are usually high flow and more common in younger individuals. Dural carotid cavernous fistula may develop spontaneously in the setting of hypertension, atherosclerosis, collagen vascular disease, and they are often low flow and symptomatic in middle-aged or to elderly women. Case 1 is a 53-year-old female presented with chief complaint of diminution of vision and mass in the left upper eyelid since 1 year, which was progressively increasing in nature and associated with occasional watering from the left eye and redness. There was a history of trauma with blunt object falling road traffic accident 2 years back, and there was no complaint in the right eye at the time of presentation. On examination, right eye was within normal limit, but in left eye, the visual acuity was 1/60 and not improving further. The intraocular pressure was measured by applanation tonometry, which was 16 millimeter of mercury, and extraocular movement was full free, painless in all direction. But there was a left upper lid mass on medial aspect, 1 into 1 into 1 centimeter cube, freely mobile, and bruit was heard. Corkscrew episcleral vessels were seen nasally and temporally, and rest of the anterior segment was within normal limit. Case 2 included 22-year-old male presented with sudden onset of decreased vision in the left eye, redness and pain since 1 year after having experienced head trauma. There was no complaint in the right eye. No history of any systemic illness, ocular surgery, or thyroid disorder. On examination, right eye was within normal limit, but in left eye, vision was 624, which was not improving further, and IOP was measured with applanation torometry, which came out to be 26 millimeter of mercury. Extraocular movements were full free, painless in all direction, but there was mild diffuse swelling in the left upper lid, and there is conjunctival congestion with corkscrew-shaped episcleral vessels. Rest of the anterior segment was within normal limit. Case 3 included 37-year-old female presented with chief complaint of headache and diminution of vision along with forward protrusion of the left eyeball since 1 year, which was progressively increasing in nature associated with redness of the left eye. There was no complaint in the right eye, and there was history of systemic hypertension for the last 3 years, for which she was not taking any medication regularly. There was no associated pain or history of ocular trauma, surgery, or thyroid disorder. Right eye was within normal limit on examination, but in left eye, vision was 618, which was not improving, and intraocular pressure was measured, which was 20 millimeter of mercury. Extraocular movement were full free, painless in all direction, but there was axial protrusion of 23 millimeter from the left orbital rim, which was pulsating, and bruit was heard. Corkscrew-shaped episcleral vessels were seen nasally and temporally to limbus, and rest of the anterior segment was within normal limit. All the 3 cases undergone CT angiography brain plus orbit, which was done and revealed the left-sided carotid cavernous fistula with retrobulbar congestive changes in the orbit. There was engorged, tortuous, and dilated left superior ophthalmic vein, which was seen with collateral and mass effect. Management was done under the guidance of a multidisciplinary team comprising of ophthalmologists and interventional radiologists, and the digital subduction angiography was done, which shows Davy shunting between branch of internal carotid artery and left cavernous sinus, revealing it to be indirect left carotid cavernous fistula. Embolization was done in all the cases under GA, and SQUID12 was injected to obliterate the fistula. These are pre-embolization, embolization, and post-embolization images. Follow-up was done, and the patient were closely monitored in the post-operative period for any complication. On subsequent follow-up, tortuous and dilated episcleral vessels were regressed, and best-corrected visual activity was improved over 3 months. A repeat contrast-enhanced CE MRI was done at 3-month follow-up, which showed obliteration of the fistula with regression of the feeder and reduction in the caliber of superior ophthalmic vein. Many patients with carotid cavernous fistulas may initially present to an ophthalmologist who should be able to make a presumptive diagnosis. The ophthalmologist must be able to monitor the course of the disease, including extraocular changes and IOP measurement. Based on the patient's symptom, treatment may be observation or neuroradiological intervention, and spontaneous closure was unlikely, so surgical treatment has to be including ligation of the external and internal carotid arteries and fistular embolization with particles, glue, detachable balloons, and thrombogenic microcols. These cases highlight the successful diagnosis and management of indirect CCF. DSA was followed by embolization of the fistula, proved to be an effective treatment option. It highlights the importance of multidisciplinary approach in the care of patient, and long-term of follow-up will continue to monitor any potential reoccurrence or complication, further adding to the body of this management. Thank you.
Do they recur after you do the embolization?
Ma'am, in all these three cases, we followed up, but there was no recurrence. But yes, there are.
What was the indication of the procedure in these patients? Because all of them
Ma'am,
look
all
to
are
have
intellects, but ma'am, there was
very mild bronchosis.
ma'am, there is constant on and off headache, and there was in one case there was increased intraocular pressure, which was not controlled by topical medications. And ma'am, in second case, in third case, there was on and off headache. There was on and off headache in.
So all three of them had grade B only, because you said
Yes.
All of them had grade B.
Yes, ma'am. All of them had grade B, and in third case, the patient was continuously coming for on and off headache, and she was not taking the hypertensive medications regularly, even after repeated.
And all of them agreed for, it's a very
Yes,
expensive
ma'am.
procedure.
Yes, ma'am.
In none of them you tried conservative management.
No, ma'am. We tried, ma'am, intraocular when there was increased intraocular pressure. We tried topical, but it was not controlled, and the patient was continuously complaining of pain. And in other case, there was headache on and off, and the patient was continuously coming even after conservative management. That's why we advised for the further management.
Okay.
You could see the pulsations in all cases?
No, ma'am.
Eyeball pulsation.
Ma'am, not all cases, but there may be when there is. Ma'am, the episcleral veins are very dilated, and
So how do you actually look for the pulsations?
ma'am,
Sometimes you may miss actually.
ma'am, insinuation of the fingers, or ma'am, the auscultation bruit was heard.
From the side, you should have look from the side. Front, you may miss sometimes. If
Yes,
it is
ma'am.
very fine pulsation, you may miss actually. If you see the patient from the front side.